Hey, how's this angle here for me?
Looks good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It's cutting off a little bit of your hat, but that's okay.
Oh, I don't know if that's okay. My hat's pretty
That's
cool.
my identity.
That's my identity.
Right.
You're in music. You should know this. You should know better.
Are you in music?
Well, that's what I was saying, and then I was like, I better stop saying that because you caught on to it. Let me address that situation. Usually the mic isn't set up like this. This is not very professional.
Oh, is that a fact?
Can we get that on record, please?
It's on record.
Since I am the professional.
Oh my God. Okay, we're starting this fucking podcast. Welcome to the Just Life podcast. It is our hope that the gritty, real, and uncensored insights we share with you here will help you get your shit together as you explore and discover what it takes to live your best life on your terms. We are at episode 79. And we're going to talk about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, and so we're just going to put it on the table, and then we'll start the conversation around it. Okay? It is about personal responsibility and entitlement. Yeah, I've been experiencing this nuance of feeling entitled to things that we haven't actually worked for, and then not doing anything, expecting it to show up regardless, and then wondering why we're not seeing it in our lives. Like it can be anything, right? And so I want to talk about what this looks like, because actually entitlement, personal responsibility, affords you the opportunity to be entitled to something, because you've actually put in the fucking work to have it show up. So I'm going to throw it to you guys. I want to hear your perspective. So let's talk about personal responsibility and entitlement.
Well, yeah, definitely. Let's do that. And what's also interesting, the way that you phrase it, you seem like you've experienced something recently. It'd be interesting to hear what that was.
Why, throw it right back at you.
Just to set that,
Well, it's less about me and more what I experienced from an observation perspective. So I'd much rather not bring that to the table, because it's not for me to say, actually.
Okay.
Now, that said, each and every one of us can most definitely bring something to the table to deepen what this actually means and how we relate to it, right? As a thing that we're striving for, as a thing that we're frustrated by. Yeah. Why isn't it happening yet? We all got one of those things. So we all get to be a bit vulnerable today.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you what popped up for me when you said that, and it just automatically went there when you talked about being entitled, which we covered it a little bit before the show, which you know what I'm going to say, right? Yeah. White privilege.
Oh shit!
That's which is interesting. That's where my mind went instantly. Growing up in this society, and I haven't been raised in the States, but hearing some of the stories that my parents coming over here from Barbados, that's where my family are from, and hearing the struggles that they went through, getting a job and being sometimes even denied because of perceptions of their capabilities, was astonishing to see. And I still get to see that a little bit now, right? Where for me, I feel like I have the mindset generally of I have to hustle and really work 10 times as hard. I don't always do that, but that's usually in the back of my mind. Is that?
That's true. Can I add something to it? Just the strange thing is like there's always this notion that, if we're gonna go there, white people need to be quiet. We can't say anything. We can't speak about it.
Which is odd. I've never thought that.
Isn't it right? And so
never thought that.
If that's the case, that's fine. I'm okay with observing and learning and understanding, but there's a certain threshold that we cross over when you observe, learn, grow. Is it now that I've gained all this knowledge, is it not my responsibility to share and open up that dialogue? So the idea that you have to work 10 times harder, I don't think that's exclusive to race. I think that's more exclusive to class. And so I would almost argue that the idea of white privilege is more a nuance than it is a reality.
Whoa, yeah, that's
I would have to disagree with that.
yeah,
Gritty, real, uncensored.
yeah, right.
I've never had a chance to share this conversation with somebody, so it's interesting
That is
we can
fascinating,
talk about it.
and it's good to see different perspectives. I'm gonna let you finish.
The reason I disagree with that is simply because I've personally experienced what it's like to benefit from the privilege of being not only a male but a white male, right? Especially in this society. I've gotten jobs over other ethnic groups simply because of the color of my skin and because of my gender. And the reason I know that is because it was explicitly told to me.
Oh my goodness.
On top of that, I used to date a girl that was from Trinidad for about 10 years, and I got to. I used to think, back in my more naive years, that racism had been pretty
That
much,
wasn't that long ago, by the way.
has been pretty much eradicated, which is a stupid thing to say. And easy for me to say.
No, but it was how you were raised. Like, your parents taught you not to be racist because they grew up in racist environments. I know that was how I was raised.
This is a really interesting point. So our parents definitely raised us with a high moral standard. Mm-hmm. Now, this is perfect for the convergence between entitlement and what I believe I'm able to do, should be able to do by nature of where I'm at, my stature, what I believe is true, regardless of if that's actually so in the world. Mm-hmm. It's true for me, and so I end up taking an action. My parents will say things, have said things about cultures where I'm like, whoa, a jaw dropped on the ground in my mind going, what the fuck did you just say?
But there's no maliciousness there.
But that's the problem.
Ignorance, yeah.
That's the problem. There is no maliciousness. I didn't mean anything by it. Fuck that shit. Because of your entitlement or wherever you came from and whatever story that you got delivered, you felt that was okay to say? I'm sorry. That's now where personal responsibility comes into play. Because
when you have to speak up.
Well, yeah. And when listen, most of us, I'm hoping anyways, deep down, there's this thing that goes, maybe I shouldn't say this. Now, how loud that voice is all relative to how much ego is driving the show, how much entitlement is in the place.
That's coming from our frame, though, right? Like we said, my parents raised me not to be racist, but then every once in a while, my mom will say some racist shit, and I'm like, Jesus, Mom, you gotta calm down. Right. Like that, you can't be out here operating like that and treating people that way. So the frame now that we operate under is like, I'm trying to think forward, right? I acknowledge that there is a history. I acknowledge that there is some systematic things that are going on. There are problems in the system, but I look at it overall, right? Because I come from a poor family and I've had no privilege. I understand. I've never been told once that I got a job because I was white. I've never been told that.
But you have benefited from your privilege.
And see, this is ignorance, right? You don't know what you don't know.
It's automatic sometimes.
In my frame, from the little box that I've lived in my whole life up until now, you know what I'm saying? This is what life looked like. Now, take it a little bit deeper, and if you go into the idea that when I teach my boy to go out into the world, there's a certain criteria I gotta put in that list of things that, right? Mm-hmm. Your list is a little different, isn't it?
It is.
It is a little different.
There's more obstacles.
Now my question is why? Why would you do that? And I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. Why would you add the extra things like because you're black, you need to be extra careful? Because you're this, you need to be this. Why would you add that in?
Because of experience,
right?
And the fact that he probably didn't add that in.
A frame that that's the disparity between the two ideas of your reality versus mine. So.
Like glaringly obvious. Where I got to tell you, like I mean, still even emotional now about it. Like not like mad about it, but just like that's just so fucking weird to me.
Yeah.
Well, you should be, because it's no different than when you were like in school and everyone was picking who they wanted on their team, and you would have been the last one picked for circumstances beyond your control. Right? And
it's so weird. It takes me back to like in high school. Like, of course, we grew up. I'm going to assert for all of us, that we grew up in a multicultural condition environment.
For sure,
right? And I remember this conversation takes me back to a time when at school, I was talking, there was an East Indian, black, of course, white, and Elka, who's East Indian, she goes, you know, it never occurred to me. Like, I never saw color. Like, Lynette, who's white, she's just, I never saw her as white. And I gotta tell you, that's when it really clicked in it. Like, I tuned in, I saw color when she said it. I was like, holy shit, I never saw that either.
Right?
Never saw it.
My kids, I guarantee my kids don't see color.
Yeah, like and it's weird. So when I see these things in the world, especially like say from more old school thinking, like the other thing that, of course, is when thoughts come in, they just come in like this, right? So I got a whole wheel just spinning based on, you know, just you setting the context of this conversation, and just examples just started popping up. So I left a job about 2 years ago just based on that. And the gentleman, really nice, giving me the opportunity to get into that environment and learn in that industry. But what was really odd was to see live and direct how this guy not only had just white privilege, but seemed so ignorant about his, what I'm going to call racism. You know, like just comments he would make, even just about opportunities. I mean, he was just, as you said, glaringly obvious about it, pointing it out about other people, but not seeing it in himself. And it's challenging to show somebody else and saying, like, what you just talked about is so fucking offensive.
You know what the interesting part about offensive?
Yeah.
It's a choice.
What do you mean, like me seeing it as offensive?
Choosing to be offended by something.
Yeah, and here's
you assign it, and then it becomes your program.
I agree with that. I agree. Like, I choose it to be offensive, and it's so hard to ignore. Like,
because it's an injustice, and so
exactly.
Degree, it's your responsibility to correct it. Almost.
It's almost like, in a sense, like the Me Too movement, when or some girl gets just tapped on the ass. You know, it kind of feels like that. Where it's just like, I could see this differently, but why the fuck did you do that to me? Like, why did you think you could come up and just...
Yeah, the problem is on the person that's delivering it, right? Because, like, it doesn't need to be a big deal. You know, some guy just slapped some girl in the butt, and he didn't actually intend for anything more to go from that.
Exactly.
It's a disrespect, because it's basically showing that I'm entitled to touch you any
exactly.
way I want
I'm entitled to treat you a certain way.
You don't get any say in that, and that's obviously offensive, and that's when like this sort of discourse happens.
So there's two ways to deal with it. And I like what you just said, because it is the way that, in the end, the way that you choose that, and why I say that is because you could look at the circumstance and treat that in two different ways. You could be really offended and come from that context and be like, you know, fuck you. Who the fuck do you think you are?
Yeah.
Or you could say something like witty, you're just like, you know, that's going to cost you $500. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, like, normalize it. Not
right? Yeah. Just the spin on it, and that's why.
But when you take the power away from things like that, what happens? When you take the power away from something,
it doesn't go away, man. It does not go away.
This is the belief that I think is hardwired into you to believe this, and so that becomes your understanding of the way that you frame the world, is that there must be this and this in order for the world to operate. I come from a different place where I'm a little bit more optimistic, where I'm like, if we can teach people not to become offended by things, we take the power away from those things eventually, through evolution, go away. They may still be a part of our history, but let me see, how much do you know about Atlantis? How much do you know about, you know what I mean, like these ancient times that weren't even relevant now, like paving roads with giant stones? We don't do that anymore. Yeah. It's not even like a thing, right? Like, the way that we've evolved as human beings is some things that aren't relevant anymore, we put them down, and then we move on to the next problem.
And I totally agree with that, but there's some, like, let me give you an example. You know, like, there's no way it would be acceptable for us to normalize using certain derogatory racial slang in regular conversation, because, and the reason that my understanding of this is simply because there's a lot of emotion and a lot of trauma that is attached to those words.
Right.
Words carry power, and even if we just say it willy-nilly, so if I would go around saying the N-word willy-nilly, but I'm not actually believing myself to be a racist, and me believing that power of that word doesn't affect people negatively, that is ignorance on my part.
Right.
Because for a lot of people, especially still some people I know now who are subjected to those comments, it evokes in them a kind of trauma every single time they experience it.
I have some friends that will literally punch you in the nose without a second thought, and other people who like don't even realize the word exists.
Yeah, and to be clear, like for some people, they might react that way violently. I don't think violence is ever the answer. But to give you a cheap example, I had a friend of mine who experienced a lot of trauma when she was younger in regards to that word, that slang, where she was being told it by people in school and then people in her regular professional life. And she used to be like, her parents used to be chased around and threatened with physical violence and then called that word. So every time she would hear it, even like as a joke or even in rap or even in a community of people where it's socially acceptable to be saying it, she would experience that trauma, that emotional raw trauma every single time. It was literally like invoking it.
It's post-traumatic.
It's
stress,
post-traumatic, yeah. And there's a way of dealing with
trigger to bring about that. Yeah.
So my reasoning is, if there's like, what is the point in saying this word if it brings so much pain and anxiety to people? There's no reason to continue perpetuating it if it brings that much trauma.
It's a framing thing, right? Because some people say it as an endearing term. Some people say it as a derogatory term.
I guess they do.
Right?
They do.
Right?
They do.
It's just weird to hear it as like an endearing term.
You know. This still relates because is it, going back to a little bit what you were saying, is it just the word? Because realistically, it is just a word.
It is just a word.
Right? And it's like I see Pavlov's law in motion here.
Ring the bell,
and she just or I imagine this, she responds, right? Yeah. I'll give an example in regards to that word. When I was younger, I was also called that. I still hear it periodically now. But it rings differently now. And what happened was, me and my best friend at the time, who was also a brother, we were coming out of school and some white kid calls us the N-word. And we went and started beating him up.
Like anyone would know.
Yeah, right? Like, all right, we're gonna show you what time it is.
We'll show you how big of ends we are.
Yeah, right? But it's interesting because as I tell the story, I remember laying some licks on him and I was thinking, not is this right, but like, when you kind of feel a little bit off? And I went and told my dad about it. It's like, we went and disciplined somebody for using the N-word on us. And he goes, do you know why you responded that way?
Genetically, from maybe your lineage? Could be an inherited trauma?
It could be.
Inherited trauma.
It could be. It could be. So he goes, do you know why you responded that way with violence? And I go, yeah, because he called me that. He goes, no. Because you think you are.
Ooh.
Oh.
That's why you responded that way.
You.
Jeez.
So your culture.
Yeah.
Uses brother often.
Yeah.
In that same manner, the endearing manner that they would use the other word, and it's so interesting. Like I can't even say the word.
Brother?
I just don't.
No, the other word.
Again, brother. Really
right?
Dangerous.
Yeah, but the N-word then. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Why when I hear the word brother and when I hear it from a brother, it is only it only feels good because of.
I've had guys tell me, don't call me that.
I get that. Okay,
don't
that's.
Say that to me. Don't act like you know me.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
that we're ethnic. That said that. Yeah.
And that's interesting too because it really points to what you just said. Is in what you believe. You are and how you're associated to that word or how the other person is associated to what is allowed or appropriate or whatever, and then it's just an automatic thing.
Like we said, like
we don't even realize it's happening.
It's so strange. Just like when you talk about your experiences with the word and with everything else. When I was a kid, being gay wasn't cool. Like it's like now it's like a mainstream thing. Like everybody just wants to be gay because it's cool. It really has the pendulum swings. You know what I mean? The pendulum swings. Yeah, like
there's a lot more acceptance than there was when we were
right.
Yeah.
So growing up, I was called the F word a lot, and gay slur.
It had a negative connotation for sure.
Yes, and
Dave Chappelle said this one last night too.
Right.
I know he screamed it too.
But see, now I remember there was a moment for me where I was like, fine, I am that. But guess what? Doesn't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not. Like I had a wife and a kid. You know what I mean? Like I'm so far the opposite of it. But I've been beat up for it. I've been called that. I've been my whole life.
Was it just like they were trying to find something to hurt you with?
And this is what I want to go. This is what I kind of want to speak to. Is that level of like inherited trauma or that programming that comes from their parents and their parents' parents, and like forgive them for they know not what they do. And this was a maturity thing that as I kind of got into that place, like sometimes, like, I don't believe that my parents are racist, but every once in a while they say some shit and I'm just like, God damn. But also, like, their parents before them were probably extremely racist. I don't know, because they came from completely different countries, but you understand this idea of, like, it just kind of gets passed on. You have to know this, you have to think this way, this is how you have to be in society in order to fit in. And so to me, like I was trying to say before, like, I'm a very forward thinking person. Like, okay, if we take that away now and we don't even acknowledge that it can be bad or good, and we just ignore it, then it becomes something else. Censorship on the radio used to be everything, but now they say bitch and they say ass. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they say
isn't that
damn.
something?
And I'm like, when did that happen? When did it
become acceptable?
Because we all collectively as a society just one day went, oh, that didn't offend me, and nobody's writing into the station anymore. We're just changing the station.
You point to something really interesting. So there are these words, and a prime example is the F word, right? We use it often on this podcast.
Yeah.
I grew up that was the equivalent to the N word in our house. You do not say that word.
Right.
And the once or twice that I did say it when I was like, I don't know, 12 years old, I got soap in the mouth.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Literally, that was a thing.
It was brutal.
It was a thing.
I don't recommend doing it.
Some of my friends, they told me stories about, like, hot sauce and, like, some other crazy shit. Yeah, well,
but now that word, like, in my world, so I look at my dad and then I look at me, and I have unfuckable with on a poster down here.
Right. That's
and
right.
when he comes down to check out the podcast, because Patrick's like, hey, come check out the podcast room, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Knowing what's going to unfold.
Yeah.
All he was obsessed by was that poster.
Yeah.
He could not see anything else. And then we had it for about 45 minutes, a conversation about why it's a filthy word. His words, that word is filthy. I'm like, why is it filthy? Well, it's based on sexual. I can't even remember what he said.
Human beings.
Yeah, but hold on. Like his field of view of that word, by nature of society, influences, those types of things, where it was just constantly being defined in that lens. Had him be viscerally reacted by that word because it's filthy and it's degenerative, and then I said, okay, I get that. Do you know that it is the most diverse word in the English language?
In any sentence.
That you can actually, it is the most effective way to elicit your state of emotional, like where you're at emotionally, than any other word in the human language.
Yeah.
Did you know that? And he was fighting it tooth and nail. But I was, in this case, I wasn't going to give up, because it's not a filthy word. Yeah, it's a triggering word, most definitely. Contextually,
Right.
it's all in context.
Yeah.
Now, the N-word hasn't quite hit that
Like,
spot
what
yet.
the fuck or fuck you. Two very completely different things.
Yeah, the N-word and fuck, for example, are different categories, because one is like a general word that doesn't, like, specifically
It hasn't
relate
classified
to a type of,
totally.
group of people that have been disenfranchised. And
Well, here's the thing. Then this is like the icing on the cake. It was brilliant. So we're having this conversation, and my mom is there as well. We were here for Maya's birthday, which they don't celebrate birthdays, and so they
don't celebrate. Are they
Did you get 'em?
Jehovah's? Were they
Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're not Jehovah's. They worship Jehovah. That's the God. Just to be really responsible for our language.
That's funny.
Not that it does matter. Anyways, so they're there under the guise of a barbecue, and it's really a birthday, and that's a whole other thing about. It fits in here somewhere. I don't know quite where, but. So she's listening, and my dad and I, we have very similar energies. I will make my point, and he will make his point, and we will die on our hills to make our point.
Apple's
but in this case, now in most cases, I am the one who relents. I'm not interested in going there because for the most part, it's about something that I really don't care to dig in. And in this case, I said, no, fuck it. I'm going to make my case here so that he understands. And then something interesting happened as we were having the conversation. Mom was talking about an experience that happened, and I think it was about some family matters that were going on, and he was very frustrated by it. He's like, "It's unfucking believable." That's what he said. And mom pointed it out. He's like, "Oh, you know what? Actually, now that you say that, I do remember when you used that word because there was no other way for you to express where you were at in that moment." Mic drop. That was it. That was all I needed because it's not a filthy, degenerative word. That is an artifact of an old way of thinking that has been influenced by a very narrow field of view, and you already know it.
Right.
But you're holding on to it, but you also know what else it can do because you used it. Mm-hmm. And this is the thing about personal responsibility. We know I am never going to drop that word. Never, ever going to drop that word because I know the weight in which it carries.
It can also be an emotional relief too.
No, I'm talking about the N word right now.
Oh.
I am never going to use that word.
Which is true. It can be an emotional release for some
people. Fair enough. And I have no context for what that looks like because it is not mine. Fuck is a word that I can relate to because it is relatable to me. The N word is not relatable to me. And so it's just hands off. Yeah. Full stop. Why do we need to justify any rationale to use it when you don't understand it?
It's kind of like the same, and I just want to steer it back to the original premise of the conversation, but it's kind of like the same with, there's been this transgendered movement where people are really insisting that we, use specific pronouns to refer to them by because for them it makes them feel like they identify with their proposed gender.
Personal responsibility.
Personal responsibility in the sense that if you are aware that saying this certain word to somebody is going to make them feel bad, what kind of do you want to be an empathetic, compassionate person?
Yeah, where do you land on the spectrum?
Before it used to be miss and ma'am. If you mix those two up, you could be very insulting to
my wife gets really, really triggered by senora, which is miss in Spanish, and she's like, "You don't call me that."
You don't do that?
No, because it's an old lady thing.
Oh.
Yeah, see, and check this out, okay? So most young ladies are going to hate the word ma'am, and they prefer miss. My girlfriend, on the other hand, when one time, it's just kind of like a natural habit. You know how you do language things that you just do every once in a while? She told me to do something. I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And she was like, "Ooh, that's I like when you say that, right?"
But why?
I have no idea.
Let me tell you why.
Because it's an authority thing.
No, well, yes and no.
It's a power dynamic.
Yes and no. Here is why, and this is my speculation around it, is that you acknowledged her and you gave her a level of respect that deep down she's never really been given very often, and so it really made a positive impact.
Yeah,
that ma'am was you indicating to her that I am in service to you because I admire, respect, love you.
Yeah.
It is not because there is and there might be some where it's I'm master, you're servant, but that's not why she enjoyed
it.
Right. Yeah.
In that instance, absolutely, because in that instance she felt heard and appreciated and empowered.
And this is so crazy. That's the personal responsibility that we all have. If you have a belief system built into who you are and how you operate, and it's not serving you in that, every time you encounter something and it causes you a great deal of harm, how good is that belief system?
Not very.
It's not very good. So you have a personal responsibility to alter your belief system so you can live a better life.
Yeah.
Man, and
moral of the story, live a better life based on your belief system. So change that belief system so that it serves you, because you're in charge of that. That's the one thing that you get control over. Back to the pronoun thing. I don't know what people call me. I've been called a lot of bad things, and none of it ever bothers me, but I've also been called a lot of respective things. I'll walk into a bar and my best friend will be like, man, you want some boss moves? And I'm like, cool, yeah, I'm a boss tonight, right? But then I get to the other side of the room, it's like, oh, look at this asshole. In the same, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I just choose not to give too much power to either one.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get so big-headed that I'm the big boss that when somebody calls me an asshole, I'm like, no, shrivel up.
Or you do the extreme and you feel justified now in being big boss.
Right, and so if somebody says something like that, I got to back up big boss.
Exactly.
Which means now I'm drinking, so I'm intoxicated so I can fight somebody and prove that I'm a big boss. To who?
Yeah, that's
because nobody cares at the end of the night. They all go home. I get arrested, right? Like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
You care. You have to care. That's the personal responsibility to this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and if you don't adjust that, the way you think and see the world,
well, the entitlement takes over.
You're trapped.
Yeah, the entitlement's a big thing. And just like it's like important to, like in the pronoun sense, if this person feels better being referred to these specific pronouns than using them, it's their responsibility to communicate that shit. Right. Because there's how many of these things that exist?
Yeah, you can't expect to know all of it.
There's no way you can know.
And you shouldn't be offended if somebody doesn't use it if they have no context for it.
Exactly. It's your responsibility to communicate.
Yes. This. So entitled, I am entitled to be called whatever. You are also personally responsible to let people know why that makes a difference for you.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of just assume that everybody knows and then get radically offended when it doesn't go your way, because inevitably it won't.
So I want to shift this a little bit inside of. We've been talking a lot about communication, how we're communicating with each other. I want to shift a little bit into our responsibility in the actions that we take or that we know we need to take, and our entitlement to it should have happened already, or why isn't it happening, or I shouldn't have to do that.
I think entitlement is a constant battle inside of yourself over control over your patience. I'll do so, and I think this speaks to what you kind of alluded to at the very beginning. I'll do something, like let's say I'll put together a presentation, and then I imagine giving this presentation to the right person. I give that presentation to two people, and I'm like, why am I not rich yet?
Totally.
I said this presentation twice.
My whole life this is the entitled millennials conversation that nobody's talking about.
Well, they actually are.
I was told that if I go out there, I work hard, I'm going to get what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I was told. So I'm out here, I'm working hard. To me, it looks hard.
Yeah, that was the old formula that worked. It doesn't work anymore.
Right, and it still works, but it's in context and with patience. Because now you see somebody who makes $1 million a year. It's taken them 5 years to get there, and you're like, why am I not there? I'm working hard just like that person.
Yeah.
Why am I not rich?
Or you're 70, you have a little YouTube channel that you make millions.
Yeah, right. The 70-year-olds are making more annually than I am.
Now, the
idea is execute on that idea, put it out, and do the thing, and eventually it's going to happen. But the thing is they had patience. That happened in 3 years. Ryan's toy review didn't blow up overnight.
No,
it was years of work. He started when he was 4, and then by the time he was 7, he had a half-decent following.
And that was all of.
That is funny.
That was his parents.
Is that where we're at these days? We're working them hard at 3, man, to the coal mines.
Yeah. And it's crazy to think. And so now this becomes like an internal battle. Like I sing very well. I've been recording my music. I have 5 albums out. Why am I not famous yet? Mm-hmm. I work just as hard as
entitled
does, I guarantee,
to my success,
and I'm entitled to that success, right? But now, why? Because I work hard. So it's not wrong. It's just that my patience don't exist.
We think that working hard is the only thing to do.
You guys were smart.
Well, yeah, and that's a cliched thing now that everybody says, and nobody knows contextually what that actually means. How do you work smart? I am working smart.
One more cliche. It's not what you know; it's who you know.
Yeah. So it's like
work smart, not hard. With
and it's all of those coming together.
Right? The formula for success.
Because in terms of like media and entertainment, it's a huge industry. It's massive. Everybody wants to be a Hollywood star. Everybody wants to be an actor. Some people want to be stuntmen. Some people want to be like professional pro athletes. And so everybody's working really hard at the craft, but then there's a huge part of it that's like the marketing element. Like, how do you reach an audience? How do you become famous? How do you become popular? How do you make people like you so that they want to see your face on screen? You know, so working really, really hard has got its merits, but on the other hand, if no one sees you or no one's interested in what you're doing, it's not going to really amount to much. So there's these little
so does
elements
that come back to
it.
the personal responsibility? Like, if you want those
You
things,
have to understand. You have to
learn.
understand what's missing.
Right.
You have to understand what's missing, what the failed component is, and then invest time and energy on that rather than just doing what you're doing, hoping that something changes.
Here's the one component that most everybody fails to include inside of their working hard mindset. It is the relationships that we keep. The relationships are the cornerstone of it all. So to your point of it's not what you know, it's who you know. Here's why it's cliche. It's actually not it's what you know, it's who you know. It's how well do you know those people and how much are you in service of those people.
And it's what you know enough to go find those people.
Yeah,
the personal responsibility to know, hey man, like I am committed to get to know Al and what he's up to because he's a brother. And because I'm interested and genuinely want to see him live his best life on his terms. Yeah. And now, my words are, I mean, that was well executed, right? Pat on the back, Dave. Good job. You must have said that a few times. It's inside of now my what I say I'm committed to for Al. Does Al believe that?
It's your actions that make him believe it.
Because if I'm saying I'm in Al's corner, but I'm never there, well, it's a crock of shit, yeah. And you are still now inside of this entitled mindset that just by saying that something should happen.
I said that nice thing to that person, so I should have what's mine.
Right.
Yeah. You're investing the effort and energy in the relationship.
Looking at everything that we just said, I think it's like all of the above. You know, who you know, what you know. Because I think a lot of people who work hard don't realize that it's like a cake. It's not just one ingredient, it's many ingredients, right?
Yes.
And it's how it all comes together, how you bake that cake.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people, especially I'm going to assert in this society, when we think that we work hard, we're just being busy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
We are
busy. A manager carrying around
busy.
Loading up the ice machines, that's not a manager's job. You're not managing and that's why that place is failing.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you see these things happening where people aren't executing on the personal responsibility.
This is a really great example. Let's deepen that a little bit. He's putting the ice away because in his mind, he's the manager. I'm entitled to be your superior. I'm telling you what you need to do. Yeah. And what happens there is a big fuck you. And guess who gets to put the ice away?
Mm-hmm.
The manager does.
Yeah.
Because you're actually your actions are not in a congruent alignment with what you are saying. If you are a manager, then to your point, do you actually understand what it means to be a good manager? Yeah. It is not a master-servant dichotomy. That's not how it goes. Maybe it was at one point
in time. That's right.
But that's not how it is anymore. Yeah. So if you are living from an old way of thinking, you are going to reap the results of an old way of thinking, which it's not relevant anymore. Yeah. It doesn't work anymore.
Well, the punchline is shift the framing.
Yes.
Right? Shift the way that you think, shift the way that you see these things.
And actually do the hard work in understanding why do I react the way I do in certain situations? Why am I sitting? Why am I on the couch like a lazy ass, wondering why I'm not going where I say I want to go? Why I'm hungry? Why isn't there food on the table? The fucking dishes are piling up. Well, who the fuck's going to do the dishes?
It's making conscious decisions rather than living life on autopilot.
Yeah, and then wondering why your life is a shitstorm. Yeah. Right? Like, it's so simple, and it's the hardest thing. It's self-awareness.
It's self-awareness, really, really true, like radical self-awareness. Because there's a level of self-awareness, like, yeah, I know myself. I know I'm lazy. I know I procrastinate. I know that's not. Those are just the cliches.
Hilarious.
Those are the quips, the things that we just say. Like, oh, I know I'm this. I know I'm that. But like, okay, then stop complaining about those all the things that you're not getting in life.
Yeah.
If you want things, you got to do things. You got to work for it. It's not just the work. It's now you got to meet people and execute on those ideas and pull the plan together. And this is the manager. If a manager doesn't know how to manage, he ends up doing the tasks.
Yeah, the opportunity is to learn how to really manage people in this day and age.
Yeah.
To lean in and take ownership for what it takes to do the thing, because the thing needs to be done, and we want people around that feel good about where we're all at, and so you just get to own that little piece of the pie.
So then the most important part before that is how you manage yourself. Because
Absolutely.
you can't really manage anybody else if you have like the worst habits that anyone has ever seen.
Well, and to your point about the I'm a procrastinator. Oh yeah, no, I can't wake up early. I got no time to go to the gym. I don't know how to eat properly, or I don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
Those are the opportunities. They're not what defines you. They are not the thing that has you be the human being that you are creating in your world. That is your place for growth.
And the funny thing is how quick it is, at least in my own context. Like, so I'll give you an example. I've been struggling to wake up early the past little while.
That's why I said
in
that.
the morning.
Nice dig.
And I get
Now
mad
you can take your knife back.
I would get mad at my friend Mike because he's staying at my house, and like, we're gonna wake up in the morning, we're gonna go to the gym, we're gonna get all this stuff done. He's always on board, and I'm just like, cool.
He's always a yes guy.
He's always yes guy, yeah. And then push comes to shove, the time comes, and I wake up, and it's like, whatever. My alarm clock went off, or I turned it off, and I was not even conscious of doing it, because sometimes it's like I'm in my sleep, I'm in my dream, and I'm like I'm training my body to turn it off before I'm even awake.
Right
Yeah, exactly. And, like, present Pat always screws future Pat over all the time. He's the worst, most unreliable guy. But then I wake up being like, damn it, it's like 10 a.m. It's like, I can't rely on Mike. I can't rely on these other people that are supposed to wake me up. As if it were their responsibility that I wake up on time, like I'm a kid again. And then I catch myself in this thinking, and I'm like...
But you set yourself up that way, right?
I do, yeah, because I stay up super late at night.
Well, no, not...
That's part of it. That's part of it. Yeah.
But actually, you set yourself up, because whether you're aware of it or not, in the background, you're saying, okay, Mike's going to wake up.
Yeah, right? I can rely on that. No, I can't.
Yeah.
This is the autopilot.
And you actually know you can't rely on it, but you're hopeful.
It'll change this time.
Maybe it'll change this time. Oh, the irony in that.
Because how many times has it not changed? Many times.
Well, but that's the thing. Maybe it could change the next time. And who gets to be the one to change it?
I mean, I get to be the one.
You have to be the one.
I'm the only one that I can really depend on, in the sense that I'm controlling my own experience.
Yeah.
I can't depend on someone else to do that for me. So, and it happened this morning, it happened yesterday, and I always wake up being like irritated and grumpy, and I'm just looking to blame someone else all the time. And I have to like sit and be still and sort of feel it out, like literally feel the emotion that's like resonating and building inside me, to realize that it's all coming from me, and it's not anyone else's responsibility.
See, that's a great example. Great example, because there's two parts of this that I'm seeing. So one, we're talking about it, right? You're just talking, you see it, and you realize there's something I want to do, but I'm not doing it. I feel there's one thing that's missing for me in this, is like, if we were to take that example and say, okay, step by step, this is what you need to do to make sure that's an effective result. How do we get to that? Like when we talked about going from being entitled to being in an effective action. One of the things that we talked about, we all mentioned, is being aware. Like just being aware of, okay, I'm feeling entitled. I shouldn't feel that way. Okay, cool. So what is the step by step that would, if we take that example and say, this is what will effectively get your ass into action? What would that be? Like, do we...
I could tell you.
I think that's a great question.
Actually. Because the funny thing is, remember when we did habit contracts?
That was so much fun, by the way.
Talk to me. Break it down. What's going on?
It works great with you, but with Michael, it just nosed up. Because like we just ended up slapping each other in the face all the time and not getting anywhere.
So what is that? Break that down.
Create it for them. They don't know what it is.
Okay, so to give you an idea, I read this book called Atomic Habits, and it was a really good
great book. Yeah.
Great book, and in it they suggested this idea of doing a habit contract. And to summarize, the idea is you want to make the bad habit more uncomfortable than doing the good habit, because the reason you have a bad habit is because the good habit requires more effort. So if you make the bad habit have a consequence that is unpleasant, then usually you'll just do the good habit, because then you can avoid the consequence that the bad habit generates for you. In the context between me and Dave, the consequences for engaging in the bad habit was you had to pay the person $5 immediately, and then you had to slap them in the face. And for me, being slapped in the face by another man is emotionally, traumatizing, I guess, for the lack of a better term. I don't like it. It makes me feel like
I don't know if there's anybody that likes it.
There's a lot of men that would
Mike loved it. Dude, Mike loved it. I'd slap him and he's like, ooh. And I'm like, dude, you're not supposed to enjoy this slap.
You weren't slapping hard enough.
I was slapping him pretty good. In fact, I was getting so good at it that I wasn't physically hurting him. But the idea of the slap isn't to hurt someone or knock them out. It's to create this sort of shock,
discomfort,
like an electrical
enough to jar you.
But for him, he's into that stuff, so it didn't work. He enjoyed it. So I'm like, no.
You know what? I think digging deeper on this, it's important to understand, back to the self-awareness thing. Your laziness is telling you something. Yeah. If you don't want to get up in the morning, why is that? It's probably because the shit you're getting up for in the morning isn't worth it to you.
Well, actually, in my case, just to finish, it was what I did the night before, because I'm failing to set myself up for success. And when I went to this Void VR Center just a couple of days ago, I met with my friend Tyler, and it was like, when you see someone that's doing all the shit that you should be doing, or maybe you try doing it for a while and experience some success from it, and then you just fell off the wagon. Yeah. You see him doing it, and you're just like, damn it. It's just a reminder that you're like, I need to be doing that again. What am I doing? I just stopped doing it completely. And he'll set himself up so that he's basically ready to go the next day. So he'll prime his workout clothes. He'll have them all set up there in a little bag, duffel bag, sitting on top of the door, and then by the door. He'll have his bowl and his cereal ready for breakfast so that he's not scrambling. He has everything set up for the morning so that when he wakes up, it's all done for him.
Building systems.
Building a system so that it's less resistance when you wake up to having to do it, because it's all done for you.
I'll do this. I know if I have something important the next day and I was up late with friends or whatever, drinking, I do that because I'm tomorrow I'm not going to be in the right place.
Because future Devin is unreliable.
Yeah.
He's going to be
the coffee in the Keurig, the cup ready, and my bowl and cereal, and I'm I'm not going to have to think at all until I'm on the road, and then I'm good. And so, but I only do that in that extreme point. I think, just from in my own experience, I'll find something too late. For example, oh, you know what? It's 9 o'clock. I have till from 9 to midnight to do something, and I'll start editing a video. and then 3 o'clock comes around, and you're like, shit, what did I just do?
Well, it's already 3 a.m.
You gotta wake up at 8 o'clock, or Dave's gonna be mad at you because you're not here.
I'm not gonna be mad. I'm just gonna start without you.
Yeah. and this is it. It's having the social group to hold you accountable to it.
Yeah.
Made it a little bit easier for me. It's oh shit, I can't let these guys down. Especially when you have spent so much time prepping us. In that, it's listen, I'm in this to win this, and if you're not, get out of the way. And it was well, shit. I gotta strap myself in and get ready, and you know what I mean? I don't care that it's 8 o'clock in the morning, which is, in such a weird way, it's given me a new, refreshed passion for life. And I actually, I'm not a morning person, at least that's what I've told myself my whole life.
Totally.
Recently, I have seen examples of people who are morning people. And my girlfriend's another prime example. She'll wake up chipper as a chipmunk. It's scary.
Chipper than them.
Yeah, just imagine a chipmunk in the morning, just
chipperer.
Maybe a
chipperist.
So I've kind of been reframing that for myself and holding myself accountable to those thoughts and just being hey, maybe if I start thinking I am a morning person, that's going to change. And I've found that I come here with a little more energy. I feel a little more, revitalized, even though last night I was up until 1 o'clock in the morning on a date. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It didn't matter because I was yes, I'm so excited.
Hopefully that date was with your girlfriend. So which I relate to, because I perform on Fridays. I get to bed usually around 3 up here. So one of the things that we can see is what actually motivates you. So making sure you're not disappointing your peers, is one of them, right?
Yeah.
In the case with, what's your roommate's name again?
Mike.
Like, going just as that as an experiment, I love what you said. I'm curious now, like, if that seems important to you, why have you not taken action? And that's not like an accusatory, like, why are you not taking action?
It's my fault. It's absolutely my fault.
No, we know that part, but more...
Dig deeper. Is
like
the laziness telling you something?
Yeah, I like that. Like, is the laziness telling you something? Because you know what you could be doing. So what is actually stopping you? What gets you from being entitled for not...
I can tell you exactly what
Okay,
it is.
I'm curious.
I spent some time feeling it out and figuring out what's happening. It's that I like to stay up late at night. I started doing this since high school. And the reason I enjoy staying up late is because it's like the day isn't over until I go to bed. And so I can make the day last as long as I want if I just don't go to sleep. Yeah. So when I go to sleep, it's basically me resigning myself to the fact that this day is over, and I never feels like I didn't get enough done. I didn't accomplish
that makes sense.
Things.
That makes sense. So
because you slept in and you didn't get the morning people shit done.
Yeah,
right. And I can get so much shit done in the morning.
That's a thinking thing, right?
So as a strategy, to just check in to just see like what we could create with that. Maybe instead of the morning, maybe it's more at night then.
Accept it. But you accept it.
I've tried to accept it, but then I realized that again, it's just a crutch. It's a habit that has been cultivated for like over a decade.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what? Things aren't working with this habit because I'm not really getting where I want to go, and I'm missing out on a lot of things in the morning, which seems to be when the real hustle happens. Yeah. Why don't I just try switching it around and see what comes from that? Mm-hmm. But where the failure comes in is that, like I said, future Patrick, especially in the morning, isn't the most reliable guy because past Patrick loves to stay up all the time.
You know what?
I need to switch it around and just see what happens.
I like when you use the word "I need to." Instead of saying instead of like I get to, like sometimes, and the reason why I say that, going back to the atomic habit,
I can't even like argue with that. I should have said.
No, not that you should have. No,
I did it again.
No, it's quite telling. And remember, I'm not saying this as a way of accusing you, like, oh, shame on you. It's more like really like being curious about it. If we were to take that as an experiment and see if we could alter that, what would that actually look like? Like, for example, when you talked about the atomic habits, there's a lot. Because I just finished reading it, and for me, there's a lot that's missing. Like, one of them was creating the contract. Other is like is creating the environment. Other is also how you talk to yourself.
Yeah,
what words we're using, right? Self-dialogue. So when you said, I thought it was perfect when you just said like I need to and I should, like that is actually
almost feels like it's a responsibility you don't want.
It's a sense of
maybe you might be even resisting subconsciously, right?
I would definitely be resisting subconsciously.
As a tool for myself, I'm really bad for like eating. I'm really bad for going to bed. I'm really bad. Like I kind of relate to you on such a deep level with this. You know what I started doing is I just set alarms. People make fun of me for my alarms all the time, but they build these habits, and I don't have to think about it again. Now I'm like 1:00, my alarm goes off. It says go to bed. And I know that seems really surface.
You mean to schedule yourself that way?
Yeah, and so I'm like, shit, 1:00. It means you should like wrap it up, you know what I mean? And so you get this like half an hour where you're like, okay, fine, now I'm in bed. But the cool thing is, I know I only need 7 hours of sleep, right?
Yeah.
So I can still wake up 8 or 9 o'clock and feel refreshed, feel energized, feel ready for the day. And now when I wake up, I have to tell myself like, you got your 8 hours, bitch, do this.
Right.
And the cool thing is now I've patterned that to happen. And my body starts to respond to it. Here's even more. In the morning, 9:30, I have an alarm that says meditate. And so when I have the opportunity, you know what I mean? I will do it. So I'll not do it because it's like weird meditating with my girlfriend around, and because she always makes fun of me, and I'm like, I just can't get in the headspace for it, so I just don't do it. But then I'll have another one at 9:45 that says eat. Because I don't eat. I don't. I just wake up and I go. And I'm like, oh yeah, shit, grab a bowl of cereal. And what's weird is, I've been doing this now for probably 6 months. And like 9:30, 9:45 rolls around. And I'm like, oh, I'm hungry.
Yeah, you're building those systems.
Right? And so you begin to reprogram yourself. I learned this by accident, actually. This guy, Jordan Harbinger from The Art of Charm, was my first podcast ever when I was young. He had this idea that to adjust your posture before you entered a room.
Oh yeah, I do that shit.
So that it changes who you are, but it changes everybody's first impressions of who you are. So you use the door frame as the mental trigger. So what he said is just put some sticky notes around your house, so that when you walk through that door frame, you're like, oh, sticky note, and then you adjust your posture. Now, you program yourself over time, have patience, you program yourself over time. Every doorway you come through now is going to be that. And the power behind that is now you do seem confident when you walk into
the
that
belief
room.
is
That
shifted.
is so dope.
And so the whole
That is so
dynamic
dope.
shifts, yeah, and everybody in that room now treats you differently than when you were walking in unapproachable and grumpy.
Right.
It's crazy, these
So
little
you-
triggers that you set
you're
for
pointing
yourself to
to-
program.
Yeah, you're pointing to something that we're getting to with you, Mr. P, Master P,
Master P.
Master
I like
P.
it.
That's kind of like the ma'am. Be like, oh,
Yeah.
damn.
I did not get enough of that as a child. Continue.
You may proceed.
You have my attention.
Master P's listening.
So you found a system that worked for you, and one of the things that in Atomic Habits they talked about is starting off small.
Yeah, micro, like 1%
Yeah.
changes over the course
So
of a year.
I'm
makes
just
that big
curious, like
impact.
what is that? Because you've had over a decade of practicing a certain way, and it feels comfortable, and you just don't have to think about it. What is something that you saw just in us discussing that you could slowly start to transform? What would that be?
Well, it's my morning ritual. And when I did this contract with Dave, I actually had quite a bit of success with it. And it helped a lot having some accountability because, you know, whenever you let yourself down, it can be pretty debilitating. But maybe you let it slide enough that it doesn't bother you as much. But letting down another person can be very devastating because now you feel like you can't trust yourself and this person can't trust you. So the accountability part was nice. But when it came to changing my morning ritual, the biggest issue I had was that when I wake up in the morning, I got to do all this stuff. And it seems like this overwhelming task. So when I read this Atomic Habits book and he was introducing the concept of like a 1% change,
Yeah.
I would turn like my morning push-ups into like from like 50 to like 10. I would do my like 30 or hour-long meditation to like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You know, and then what would happen is I would do it. I would show up. I would master literally the art of showing up just to do the bare minimum. So I didn't feel like it was an overwhelming task. But while I'm in the thick of doing it, 9 times out of 10, it never felt like it was enough, and so then I would just end up doing more because I was already doing it. So it's like, well, why stop at 10? I still feel like I have energy. I can do another 30.
Which he
And-
discusses brilliant.
Yeah, and so,
continue.
but then I have my days where I'm like, I have no energy for this shit. I can literally just do 10 push-ups. I got maybe 5 minutes of stretching and a meditation, and then I gotta go. But I still did it.
But weirdly, on your bad days, doesn't the bare minimum still feel good?
Oh, amazing! Because
Like
it's
making
just like
your bed. This is a simple thing. You
Yeah,
wake up, you make your bed, and you're like,
yeah.
it just takes you 1 second. Like, it's not even that hard.
and then at the end of the night, you go to your room, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
I'm so
yeah.
glad it's clean and organized.
Yeah, yeah.
So glad I spent the 30 seconds to make my bed.
So, and I think that's kind of a really good circle back to the idea that we can have bad days. Bad days happen.
Oh yeah,
And
they will happen.
don't
for sure.
judge yourself so harshly on those bad, like on any
Especially bad
days,
days.
for that matter. But like even on those bad days, just like understanding, like shit, this is just one of those days. I'm not gonna be all the way in, but everybody has that, and you idealize this, you know, vision of who you might be, or perhaps you have an idol who you're like, oh, I wish I could be like that person, and that person seems to just be at it all the time. The thing is we don't see them all the time either.
No, they have their off days.
Right,
too.
so you see this off, or you see them on all the time, and so you kind of have this misconception that that's how you have to be. I remember when I started doing real estate photography, every house I walked into was spotless, and I was not a clean person. I was like accidentally drink the cigarette butts in the beer can house.
Oh
like,
my
that's,
God.
What?
That is
Yeah, man,
disgusting.
we were young, we were idiots. It was bad. Like,
Right.
this
It's the
was-
grossest shit. That's like a bomb on it.
it's a very horrible.
No, but I
experience.
get you. We've
but
all had our
I was
moments
a
for
dirty
sure.
person, and then seeing this complete contrast to that, where every house I went to was like immaculate. I developed like this disposition, like, oh my god, I'm horrible.
Yeah, you're
And
bad
so
and wrong.
it got so bad, like OCD almost, to the level where like I would not go to bed. I don't care if it was, you know, midnight or 5 in the morning. I could not go to bed until my house was spotless, perfect, everything exactly where it belonged. I've since kind of let up on
I was gonna
myself.
say,
but
are you still doing that?
They're healthy, I think.
I'll still do the tidy, the clean, hold myself accountable. My house is very, very clean, but I don't judge myself quite as harshly. And it's this idea though that everybody lived their life perfectly,
Right.
versus me, like a complete disaster. I'm like, I should just throw myself off a bridge. Like, there's no point in trying. There's no way that I'm gonna go from here to here. But again, it's because I saw people when they were at their absolute best all the time.
Compare
So you get
yourself.
this disposition, right?
This was awesome. I got so much for myself out of this journey, this game that is striving for what greatness looks like for me, myself, and this this constant grapple with some of these things that you guys talked about, you're failing to set yourself up for success.
Right.
Your laziness is telling you something. And there's these inherited traumas that are influencing how we act, and you don't even know that they're influencing how you act. So you get to do the work and start to dig and figure out what those things are. Not to now have it knocked out of the park, but that you are building the structures and the systems that will support that, and to give yourself a little bit more graciousness in the process. We are not on 100% of the time. The people that are on social media are not on 100% of the time. In fact, the ones that are on the most, you're only seeing 10% of their lives, as said by them. Gary Vaynerchuk's probably the most prolific social media content creator, and you're only seeing 10% of his life. His personal life, not on the radar. The critical business, not on the radar. So 10%, that's all he's doing to really make that. But what we're doing is we're having it be the 90% is the 10%. But that's not the case, and so we're setting ourselves up with these completely unrealistic expectations, and now we are paralyzed as a result of it. Yeah. So the big takeaway here is to understand what motivates you. What will those things be that have you get excited, and double down on the systems, understanding the systems and the structures that will empower you to take those actions, to do those things. And the second it's feeling off to you, you got to look at it. You have to look at it, because if you're not going to look at it, you're going to crash and burn. That's just the inevitability of it. And no, you're not entitled to anything in your life unless you've done the work to actually move it forward. And even then, entitlement is only a byproduct of what you invested, the time and energy and attention that you've invested into the thing.
Owning a level of outcome independent thinking. Not worrying about the outcome. If you're going to do something nice for somebody, don't do it because they're going to do something back to you.
Absolutely.
Do it because you actually give a fuck about being nice to somebody.
Absolutely. And if you don't give a fuck about being nice to people, I feel sorry for you, for one, and you're going to have a hard run.
That's right.
Because that is the new currency. Yeah. The new currency is the ability to have empathy and compassion for others and be of service without having anything coming back, because it's not about the thing that comes back. It's about what you did and how you impacted and improved in somebody else's life. And don't go 100% in either. You can do 10% in being of service to other human beings, and the what we get back, like the compensation that comes from that, is going to be huge. But you got to be willing to do the work.
You also got to take care of yourself too.
Well, absolutely. That's why it's only a 10% thing, right? Right, yeah. It doesn't take a whole lot of work. It really doesn't. It's just the level of commitment. That is the hard work, is the commitment to do and take ownership with whatever it is. Honoring your alarm clocks, because you could totally easy go snooze. So that was episode 79. I want to thank you for listening and allowing us to take some of that precious time away. And we really hope that what you're hearing is of value. And we want to know as well. So if there is something that you are curious about, or you wanted to share, or you had a question around, or even some feedback, we want to hear from you guys. So let us know. Say hi at thegyst.life on Instagram or on Facebook. And we are also trying to increase some awareness for the podcast. So if you do like what you hear, go to iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, wherever your flavor is, and leave us a review. Tell us what you think. Let us know how we did. We'd love to hear from you. Hope you're having a great day.